John Wesley Powell maps the Grand Canyon by Reedworks. On May 24th, 1869, 10 men left Green River Station, Wyoming Territory, for uncharted waters. The men were a tough bunch. They considered themselves adventurers, fighters, hunters, and guides. Most of them had served in the Civil War. Their leader was a natural historian named John Wesley Powell. Powell had also served in the Army. His right arm was amputated after taking a musket shot at the Battle of Shiloh. After the war, he taught geology at Illinois Wesleyan University. Powell was an explorer and a scientist. He wanted to understand the natural conditions that formed the landscape of the American West. Powell had recruited 9 other men, 4 of whom had explored the Rocky Mountains with him the year before. He needed the men to help him with an important expedition. He was leading the first exploration of the Colorado River by white men. The Colorado River is the largest and most important river of the American West. It starts in the Rocky Mountains and flows south and west across Colorado, Utah, and Arizona, and along the edges of Nevada and California. In the 19th century, it regularly flooded and jumped its banks. On the day of their departure, the 10 men piled their 4 boats with ammunition, traps, food, and scientific instruments. Getting to the Colorado River would take time. They started on the Green River and spent over a month exploring the river and its tributaries. They named a canyon Gray Canyon after its gray sandstone walls. Later, they entered an area called Land of the Standing Rock by Native Americans. This area was marked by red rock and many distinctive buttes. On July 16th, Powell's team arrived at the start of the Colorado River. A few days later, they began their journey down the Colorado. On August 5th, the men came into a canyon with very high walls. Powell named it Marble Canyon. The rock was hard, and Powell expected to encounter rough rapids. For 3 days, the canyon walls got higher and higher. Powell's party had entered the Grand Canyon. No one had ever mapped the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. For 3 days, Powell's expedition floated through the Marble Canyon. On August 8th, the team camped in Red Wall Cavern. The cavern was a rock overhang that had been cut by the river. Powell wrote in his diary that the cavern could seat 50,000 people. The men pushed on. For weeks they traveled downriver. They rode when the river became narrow and shallow. They clung for their lives when the river fell into steep rapids. Some days they had no trouble. The river was wide and calm. On those days, they climbed the canyon walls to survey the area and collect specimens or supplies. The wind swept across the arid landscape. Sandstone rocks appeared in the shapes of anvils, arches, and steeples. On August 29, they arrived at the Grand Wash. The Powell Geographic Expedition had traveled 277 miles of the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. Along the way, they lost 1 boat and much of their food. 4 of the men had abandoned the expedition.